Hi today. I do, on behalf of the Board of Education.
Let me, before you start, have to give you a name and position.
Yes, sir. My name is Matt Davis. I'm president of the Board of Education of the City of St. Louis. Thank you all for being here. On behalf of the board, we do want to give our most heartfelt condolences to the victims of yesterday's shooting, the student and the teacher who lost their life, the assailant who was one of our students who lost his life, the students who were injured physically. We hope for the best of their recovery. And today we begin to try to make sense of this, to try to heal, to try to learn and see how we can stop this from ever happening again. One of the hardest things is that people keep saying that the district did everything right, that the police did everything right, that there really wasn't anything more that we could do, that the training went off as planned, that the students followed how they were trained, the staff followed how they were trained, our security officers acted with unflinching courage, the police responded immediately, and yet we're still left with tragedy. It's already become political, both sides of an issue trying to score points. What I think that we ask is, let's find a solution. This was the 40th school shooting this year. It was a record number. The last record was set last year. This is a trend that must stop. What else can we do? We arm our security guards. We lock the doors. We train kids starting in preschool what to do when someone comes into their school and tries to inflict trauma on them, to hurt them. A safe space, a sacred place for our childhood, and it's been taken away from our kids in this city. We have got to do better. Every night and every day, we all know when we live in this city, we hear gunshots ring out. We lose kids every day on the streets. I've said it 100 times. Dr. Adams, over his tenure, has been one of the only people who've been speaking out about this, and no one seems to listen. No one seems to care enough to do anything. But we took some solace in the fact that at least for the time that the kids were with us, they were safe. They were in the safest place that they possibly could be, and yesterday, that didn't happen. And I'm sorry, I'm angry. I'm angry for these teachers that have to go and put up with so much outside nonsense when they're just driven to teach these kids, to care for these kids, to help and give them a better life. And now they have to be social workers. They have to be doctors. They have to find some time to care for themselves. And yet, we send them back today. We'll send them back tomorrow. We'll continue to ask more and more and more of our teachers and our staff. It's got to change. I hope, I beg, that we learn a lesson, that we do something to help the people suffering from mental illness, our kids who are so tragically hurt that they are driven to just these senseless acts. And that we find a way to get these weapons of war off of our streets and, for the love of God, out of our schools. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Adams now. Thank you.
What you just heard is a heartfelt message from the board president about what parents deal with every single day as it relates to this issue of violence in schools. And despite all of the efforts being made, these things seem to continue to occur as what he just indicated. What I'd like to do this afternoon is to allow Colonel Davis to give an update in terms of a timeline that occurred in this particular incident. I'll come back and talk a little bit about what we're doing from a district level to support schools and staff, as he indicated earlier, and then allow the two principals who are the leaders at these two schools to let you know what they're doing as well, and to talk about how this has impacted them and their school communities as well. So without further ado, I'll give you Colonel Davis, who is our head of security.
Good afternoon. My name is DeAndre Davis, D-E, capital A-N-D-R-E. Last name Davis. I'm the Director of Safety and Security for St. Louis Public Schools. I'll try to give you a timeline of when we first got the call to when we got the sort of the all clear from St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. At 8:52 a.m., I received a call from Dr. Adams that there was a lockdown occurring at St. Louis Community College. As I navigated the phones to try to find out exactly what was happening on their campus, and heading in that direction, because we had dual enrollment students at that site. At 9:10, CSMB, Central VPA, went on what's called a hard lockdown, that there was an active shooter present on the campus. At 9:12, Juvenile Detective Sergeant Kevin Bentley vetted that call by calling me and my dispatch to ensure that that call was indeed true. We validated the call. St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department and St. Louis Public Schools safety and security officers were dispatched. 3 minutes later, at 9:15, both SLPS, St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department were on scene. 5 minutes into that, 9:20, the subject was engaged by St. Louis Public Schools and St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. It was at that time the threat ended. 9:20 to 9:30, students were being evacuated from the rear of the building, sides of the building. 9:49, our transportation, along with Dr. Brown, student services, buses started to arrive. We coordinated with Schnucks, which is located there at Arsenal. And this was a space where parents could receive information on where their children, where the child was, and pick up and receive their children. At 10 a.m., students and parents start responding. They were vetted. Their personal information was gathered, and some students were released to their parents at that scene. The entire building at that time was being swept by all the responding agencies: FBI, ATF, St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, and St. Louis Public Schools. At 10:27, we received calls from Tower Grove Park that some of our students ran into the park. It was at that time we summoned buses to go to those spaces and retrieve those children. The remaining students at 10:27 who had not been picked up from Snooks and who were recently picked up at Tower Grove Park were transported to Gateway STEM, where there was the reunification site for all parents and students. At 10:56, Dr. Adams was summoned for a press release, and at 11:07 is when that release took place. Thanks.
After spending all day at CVPA on yesterday, I truly believe that our safety and security team, as well as the school leaders from those two school sites, Mr. Steele and Dr. Casey Shaheed, did everything in their power to make sure that students were safe and secure, despite the fact that an intruder had entered the building. At this point in time, what we are working to do is to make sure that we are providing support to the staff and students based upon what occurred on yesterday. The question becomes, what does that support look like? As of this morning, staff from Central VPA and CSMB were provided an opportunity for on-site counseling at Stevenson Middle School. In addition to that, staff had the opportunity and students to receive counseling virtually and online by 8 different counseling entities. We also set up a phone line to make sure that any non-CSMB counseling issues could be addressed at central office. That process will continue tomorrow and through the rest of the week. On this morning, I met with both principals to work out a plan to make sure that staff would have the opportunity to get back in the building to retrieve their belongings. While the building was turned over to us today and is no longer a crime scene, we will not allow staff to go into the building, but we will allow staff to retrieve building materials for staff and to bring them to them such that they are able to do that. They were not able to do that on yesterday because the building was a crime scene. Staff will start counseling services for staff starting on tomorrow for CVPA, and CSMB will receive counseling starting on Thursday. Students will have the opportunity to get their belongings as early as Thursday of this week, as staff will be able to retrieve their belongings and bring them to them, but again, they will not have the opportunity to enter the building. There's a lot of work that needs to take place in the building, and so the building will not be available to students or staff other than for them to retrieve their belongings. In addition to that, virtual instruction will take place for students starting next week. There will not be any school for students this week or for staff at those 2 school sites. Those 2 school sites will not have instruction taking place for Tuesday, obviously today, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but starting next week, virtual instruction will take place for students. Some of that will be determined by the staff meetings that will take place on Wednesday and Thursday. In terms of that will be on Monday or Tuesday, but virtual instruction will take place. It is highly likely that the building won't be occupied for the next several weeks until we're able to do the kind of renovations necessary to put the building back in a position that students can possibly enter the building again. A lot will be determined by what it will take for that to occur. At this point in time, I'd like to introduce both of the 2 principals to give them an opportunity to share what occurred from their perspective, and then to come back to take any kind of questions that you might have from myself, from the board president, from Mr. Davis, and also the 2 principals. I'd like to call Dr. Casey Shaheed up first, the principal of CVPA Central Visual Performing Arts.
Good afternoon. Casey Sil Shaheed. Let me just make it simple. Casey Shaheed. S-H-A-H-I-D. I first would like to give condolences to the student, Alexandria Bell, who is a very bright student, very charismatic, beautiful spirit, a wonderful dancer, beautiful inside and out. And to the family of Miss Bell, very supportive family, thank you for trusting us with your scholar. And we did our very, very best to protect not just Alexandria, but for all of our students. This was not an easy task on yesterday. Not only did we lose Alexandria, but we also lost Ms. Jean Kushka, a veteran teacher. She was a PE teacher and a health teacher, and she traveled over 40 miles per day to and from work to show love, to lead, to coach the students that was in her care. And on yesterday, although it was her last day with us, we also know that on yesterday, it was also a beginning for all of us, because our home at CVPA will no longer be the same. So we offer condolences to the Kushka family as well as the Bell family. It will not be the same, but I will say this. Yesterday will not be the same for any of us, but it was a very heroic moment, and we were able to see our St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, but most importantly, the St. Louis Public Schools safety and security work alongside with the school leaders. And it's the part that the cameras did not see, that the news cannot report because you weren't there. But we saw total community happen on yesterday. No one prepared me for this part of the job, but I wouldn't have been anywhere else. I was supposed to be there on yesterday. And I talk about leading with courage and leading fearlessly. I was challenged yesterday to do just that. And as I continue to lead with courage and fearlessness, I could not do it without the support of my heroic staff and the students who were able to follow our lead and our directive. And so although it was tragic, it could have been worse. There is no award for these type of situations and moments. So I want the students of Central Visual and Performing Arts to know, as well as the staff and our community at large that stands with us, that we will get through this together with the support of one another, with the support of viable, meaningful partnerships in our community. That's our community, not those who want to exploit, not those who want to capitalize on a moment, but those who want to stand in solidarity with us as we build, as we look to build and strengthen and heal our community. We don't know what we need right now today. It will be one day at a time. But to my students and to my staff, I will continue to follow the leadership of the St. Louis Public School District, which has been totally supportive. I will continue to trust my higher power, and I will continue to lead with what I've committed to do on this job. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Frederick Steele, S-T-E-E-L-E, Principal of Collegiate School of Medicine and Bioscience. I would like to begin by also offering condolences to the families of Alexandria Bell and Jean Kushka. I'm sad to say that I interacted with Alexandria a little bit yesterday, and then I knew Miss Kushka a little bit because she was also our cross-country coach. And so about 15 of our collegiate students knew her and saw her every day. The tragedy yesterday was absolutely unspeakable and traumatizing. As Dr. Shaheed said, we're never ready for such a situation, and we never hope to find ourselves in such a situation. But we had to jump into action and exercise fearless leadership. And I'm thankful that, that we actually went through it together. We are two school communities with distinct missions, but we share the same campus. We're neighbors and we're friends, and we work very well together. And so we had to go through the tragedy yesterday together. And I agree with what she said about how our safety and security staff jumped into action and did everything that they were supposed to do and trained to do. In particular, I'd like to say a special thank you to Mr. Jermaine Yancey, because he was the first officer to respond to the intruder into the building, and he's the first one that notified me so I could know what to do. I'd also like to say the very deep, heartfelt thanks to our staff who did exactly what they were supposed to do after numerous intruder drill trainings, and to our students who followed our teachers' directions exactly correctly. They remained locked inside their classrooms as they were supposed to until they were given the clearance. I also want to say a special thank you to our community, our parents, our families. We have an advisory board that is very involved with our school. Special thanks to them, especially Dr. Will Ross and Susan Katzman, for checking in on me in particular yesterday and on our school community. I want to thank the community, our parents and families, for all their words of encouragement and prayers yesterday. We still need them. It's going to be a long road ahead. It's going to take a lot of time to process, to deal with our grief, to deal with the trauma, to deal with all the what-ifs that could have occurred. There was a loss of life yesterday, but the loss of life was dramatically minimized by everyone doing their jobs yesterday extremely well. I also want to thank the St. Louis Police Department for responding so quickly. I was there when they arrived and let them in the building and told them where to go. And they did not hesitate for 1 second. And were able to pursue the intruder with their all possible speed. It's only been 24 hours, but I believe we feel loved and supported by our community, by Dr. Adams, St. Louis Public Schools. The social emotional resources that we've been offered have been comprehensive in every accessible way, in person, virtually, on the phone. And I look forward to that more in the coming days when our school staff will be able to meet together and get support and encourage each other in person. I will continue to lead our staff in reaching out to our students and families as well, to check in on them through email, through our classroom platform, Teams, and to make sure they're doing okay and to make sure no need is going unmet. But we know it's a long process, and when students are permitted to transition to virtual learning, we'll be ready. It wasn't too long ago during the pandemic that we had to do that very thing, and we'll do it again as long as we need to. I just want to say that the support is always welcome, and consider how much time this is going to take to recover and to process things and to deal with the grief and the loss that we've experienced. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is really, really, really hard. And so these persons have come before you to kind of talk about what this really means to them. And this was an entire team effort, from the security team jumping into the police department, to board members who were on the phone. Ms. Cousins was there all day, to the clergy who showed up when we called them to provide counseling, to partners who've called all day today to provide support, politicians and others who've said, we're here to help, we're here to support. But despite that, we're giving condolences for a student who lost their lives and their family, and for a teacher as well. So even when things are done as well as they can possibly be done, and I know there will always be second guessing, that's always a part of this process, as we will go back and debrief to see how we could have done a better job in everything that we did, despite everything taking place in a way that we thought it needed to take place, and the planning and all of those other kinds of things. We're here talking about the death of 2 employees, one employee and 1 student, and that's never, never, never easy. And so at this point in time, we'll obviously take any kind of questions you might have. Mr. Sales, if you don't mind facilitating this process. But we do have counseling services in place. We are working feverishly to make sure that we're connecting the right resources to the places that they need to be provided at, and we are available to take any kind of questions that you might have. And Mr.
Dr. Adams, could you have some of your people step forward and tell us more about the victims, what kind of people they were, and give us their kind of remembrance of them, so those who knew the 2 victims, could they step forward and tell us something about them?
What specific information?
just what you recall, just your thoughts about them, what kind of people they were, what they liked, something like that.
Alexandria Bell was a sophomore student. We had her, she joined us last year. She was a former student at Carlane Middle, which is the Performing Arts Middle School. She was a dance major. So when students come to us, they select a major with performing arts. Dance is very rigorous, so Alexandria had a goal to be a better dancer. Oftentimes, the dance teacher, under the leadership of Ray Parks, gives feedback, and so she was one of the students on his list who he was looking at to advance from intermediate to more of advanced level. But it takes a lot of hard work, and so that was one of her personal goals. She also had another goal to increase her grades academically, and so most recently we just had a report card, and so she, working with our artistic director and different individuals, was very proud of her accomplishments of improving her grades. She also had a goal of improving her sassiness, pretty sassy personality. Really didn't take a lot of crap from anybody, not even administrators. If she thought you were wrong or she didn't like how you approached her, she definitely would advocate for herself. And so she was working on how to advocate in a most astute manner and diplomatic manner, and I would say that she was working on that as well. On the morning, on yesterday morning, she left her glasses at home, and Mom came. I was outside as the buses were arriving. Mom came and said, I asked, where was Alex? She said, oh, she left her glasses. She rode the bus. And Mom brought her glasses to school because she knew she couldn't see without her glasses. So Mom beat the bus there, and we talked about the challenges with transportation nonetheless. And so when Alex got off her bus, I asked her, aren't you going to need these? Because you can't see without those. And we shared an exchange about how did you get them? And I explained how Mom brought her glasses. So I would say the family was super supportive of Alexandria. She was asthmatic. So dancing and being asthmatic has its challenges, but that she did not give up dancing. We had a recent performance, and she was winded during practice, and we had to set her aside. And she, at one point, wanted to join the dance, and we insisted not because we knew Mama Bear would not approve of that, and we let her rest and drink water as she caught her breath. And so that was. She was just a very well-rounded individual, again, beautiful inside and out. We just had our homecoming dance, and I like to claim most beautiful children. I said, she looks just like me at the dance. She looks very beautiful, and so just a wonderful personality, pretty serious student, pretty no-nonsense about things, but definitely had a personality with her peers and with her classmates.
What about the teacher?
Ms. Kushka, I don't even know where to start. I've been at Central for the last 8 years, and Ms. Kushka was there prior to my arrival. I would say one of the most dedicated staff members. When I arrived to Central, my predecessor had been there over eight years and had great relationships with the teachers, and so I was always reluctant of the staff receiving me. Ms. Kushka was one that received me from the very beginning. Very positive, very optimistic, very student-centered. She was a student council representative, and she challenged herself and went to various student council leadership, professional developments. She was a PE and health teacher, and so that made her, so she had all of our 9th graders. That's a very challenging job. Sometimes her classes would be 40-plus students, and she was the one teacher, and not one time did she complain. But I can tell you, if students did not dress out in uniform, and if they did not have their PE uniform, and yes, she made them wear PE uniforms, a CVPA shirt with matching shorts that she would order every year. Students had to pay a deposit, and she was serious that they had to wear them. And if they did not, we all knew that we were going to get a phone call or an email, and she wanted them in school suspension or detention. And the goal was to get them to wear their uniforms. It was all about discipline. But at the same time, she definitely instilled respect. On October the 14th, we had our school-level professional development and district-wide, and Ms. Kushka presented about respect. and she presented to our staff. And her message was around respecting the young people, showing and giving respect. And it was a message not just for our new teachers, but even for our current teachers. And so we selected various teachers to present, and that was her topic. And those words around respect will resonate with me over the years. So she was also, and my staff won't like this, probably the only teacher that never complained about anything, never complained. Every year she would do a benefit cycling event for her son who was diabetic, and so she would travel. I don't even want to give the miles. I'm going to say 60 miles on a bike somewhere up north, and so I don't want to misquote it, but that's how dedicated she was to her family. She had a daughter. When her daughter was in high school, she ran track. Ms. Kuchka did not miss a track meet. She did not miss, I think, basketball. So all of her children and her grandchildren, she loved them dearly. She will be greatly missed by our school community and by the entire student body.
I want to ask you a question about security. Are your security guards, no, I'll address that too. Security. Are the school security guards armed, and tell us exactly what they did yesterday to confront the suspect?
So it's a unique space. We have stationary officers who are placed inside of schools. Those safety officers are not armed. We do, however, have response safety officers who are armed. We go to all the different schools and we respond from elementary school to middle to high schools. Those officers are the ones who were first on the scene on that day with SLMPD to get inside that building and to extract kids from windows, extract kids from roofs, leading them down Arsenal to Snooks. These were those officers that showed up that day.
But DeAndre, the first officer who encountered the intruder, was that an officer who was not armed?
He was not armed, sir.
And maybe this is a question for the Board of Education too. Is this something that you'll be reviewing going forward, whether the inside the school officers could make a difference in a day like yesterday if they had a gun to stop an intruder?
I can answer that.
We're obviously going to review everything. That's our obligation. As Dr. Adams said, while it appears that everything went about as best as we possibly can based upon training, we won't miss an opportunity to learn from this and improve this. In fact, we have conversations frequently about safety. We had a conversation, I think, 2 weeks ago with Ms. Cousins, Dr. Adams, and Dr. Williams about making sure that we had our communications plan in place as much as possible, and if there needed to be an investment in new security. Part of the bond issue that we passed was dedicated to upgrading security systems in the school, which is a constant need to make sure that it's up to date as possible. There is a balance with our safety officers. There is two sides to this. We receive criticism for having as many safety officers as we do. We have received criticism for having any armed safety officers. We receive criticism, obviously, just today from people who don't have their facts straight, that we don't have enough armed safety officers. It's a constant balance.
Well, could yesterday have been different if the first officer to encounter this intruder had a gun? Could it have been different?
My understanding is that the assailant had a high-powered rifle, so much so that he could force himself into a secured building. The building is riddled with bullets. I don't know how much firepower it would take to stop that person. You saw the police response. It was massive. It was overwhelming. If you talk to the law enforcement, they don't believe that it is in the best interest of our society to allow people to have these high-powered rifles, especially when they fall into the hands of people that want to do harm. So I don't know if it would have been different. I know what would have been different is if this high-powered rifle was not available to this individual. That would have made the difference.
Dr. Adams, can I ask you to introduce us or tell us who is overseeing the student support services that would help with the difficulties of this trauma?
Dr. Michael Brown is the Deputy Superintendent of Student Support, and is working with outside partners who've come to us and indicated that they want to help. As you can imagine, when a tragedy like this occurs, everyone is indicating that they want to help. And so we have to coordinate what those services look like, and that's what we're presently doing right now. For the trauma support that will take place with the CVPA staff on tomorrow, we have an outside partner who will be coming to spend 4 to 5 hours with them to give them an opportunity to talk about what has occurred and to set up a plan to continue to provide support long term. So the point of contact at this point in time is Dr. Michael Brown, who is the Deputy Superintendent of Student Support.
And may I ask, this is open-ended, and will these services be provided perhaps on-site at the school, at home? I mean, will it be incorporated as long as it takes?
I think the latter response you provided is what we intend to do. As long as we have students who indicate that they need support, we plan on providing that support. As long as we have staff that indicates they need support, we want to continue to provide that support as well.
Is there the funding for it right now to get a successful startup and to keep the healing in process?
We have the resources necessary to do what's necessary to support families, students, as well as staff, and so the answer to the question is yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Adams.
Hi, Liz Landers with Vice News. I had a question for the President of the Board. I'm hearing a lot about the law enforcement response, praise about leadership. There were still people killed yesterday. This was a mass shooting again in America. I'm wondering if focusing on the law enforcement response is sort of minimizing the victims here. Are we normalizing mass shootings in America?
I hope not. I don't want to normalize this. I don't ever want to go through this again. I don't ever want these people to go through this again. I don't ever want to have to go get my child from a lockdown school. I don't ever have to explain this to my daughters. We can't normalize this. I don't think law enforcement wants to, I know law enforcement doesn't want to normalize this. The fact that it takes this level of response to stop a shooting like this because people have access to these weapons of war and can bring them into our schools can never be normal.
It sounds like you are saying, I heard you talk about hardening schools, about mental health resources, about educating students on drills, shooter drills. It sounds like you're saying that perhaps the weapon, the gun here, was what made this so deadly. Do you want to see restrictions on assault-style weapons here? Should this person have had to be 21 to get this weapon? I don't think we know all the details about how he got it, but are there laws that you want to see put in place at the federal level or down that you think could prevent something like this?
This is the 40th school shooting this year. It was just a couple of months where we were in this room having a moment of silence for Uvalde. There's how many hundreds of bills, hundreds of solutions, you know, hundreds of things where people can come together and compromise to protect their Second Amendment rights and to protect our kids in school. I mean, I don't know, do something. Like, if you have the job as a politician and can write laws and you can't think of anything to do to stop this, then do something else. I mean, we harden our schools. You know, we went to the voters to get more money, to harden them some more. I mean, my preschoolers, my kids, when they were in preschooler, they go through a drill. Every person in the school district, every school district across America has to have that talk with their kid, has to wrap their head around it. Am I doing the right thing, even sending them to school? What type of world do we live in? I mean, we do this every day. We're doing everything we can. I mean, we think about this all the time. I've had the conversation with Dr. Adams multiple times. This is our worst nightmare. And it was an if, not a when. I mean, think about that. This was an if, not a when. And it can't happen again. I don't want any other school district to go through this. I don't want any other kid to go through this. I don't want teachers to have to live with this. I don't want these principals who went through hell yesterday and had to come back to work to put the pieces back together, and I'll have to do it day in and day out. I don't want that for. Sorry, thank you.
Dr. Adams, you said that virtual learning will start next week, but the plan is to return both schools to that campus at some point in the future?
at some point in the future, and that may be a month, it may be 2 months. We don't know right now. Obviously, the building was just turned back over to us sometimes today. We have had an opportunity to walk through the building, and obviously with the kind of things that happen in that building, we need to make sure that that building is ready to receive students and staff and the community as well. And so I would think it is likely that it will be a longer than shorter period of time before those students are allowed to go back in that building for regular instruction.
Dr. Adams, talk a little bit about how this fits into the broader context of gun safety. I know you have your initiative, Educators for Gun Safety. This is something that your teachers have to talk about students with pretty often. Can you talk about how this fits into that context?
Unfortunately, we are working with our outside partner to add into our curriculum gun safety, of all the things to add, not just reading, writing, and arithmetic, but reading, writing, arithmetic, and gun safety. That's a weird kind of curriculum alignment, if you will. At the end of the day, what we want to try to do is protect students, and part of what we are having this press conference for today is to make you aware that we plan on making sure that we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that students are safe. I think the real underlying issue is within our power. And so that's where the real issue comes. The Gun Safety Initiative, quite frankly, was a plan put together to try to address the kind of issues that happen outside of our school district, outside of our school buildings, in terms of the number of students who have been shot in the city of St. Louis and had died, quite frankly, as a result of incidents that happen outside of the school environment. Never did I think I would be standing here today having a conversation about a staff and a student. Never. So the issue, quite frankly, is that we want to make sure that we are doing everything in our power to provide resources in the curriculum for us as a way to do that, such that we can try our best to make sure that we're supporting students who are outside the school environment by helping them understand the issues around how dangerous guns are, such that they can have that same message back at home and in the community, and we could do a better job of protecting them, quite frankly, everywhere now, not just in the neighborhoods, but also in schools as well.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming out. If anybody has any other questions, so you can check me out. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I've got the timeline here. If anybody needs a copy of it. I believe so, yes. There's,